Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. We're here in Hoofddorp by the airport, and we're going to tell you what's going on in Europe and the world beyond. Today on Before Coffee, let's review Prinsdag. That's right, it's Prinsdag, and we are in Den Haag, where we just left, or The Hague for the English speakers out there. And we're going to go on a little daily, it's called Budget Day, I guess. So they're going to address the country about what they're spending the budget on for the Dutch citizens, and we're going to overview what's happened so far.
Also today on Good Tuesday News Day, we look at the mighty benefits of writing by hand. Also, news from Ukraine. Zelensky vows to be heard as he prepares for his first in-person UN address since Russia's invasion. Also, there's a strain of cotton that uses less water.
And in culture news, FCC judge rules that Knoxville's only black-owned radio station can keep its license.
Also, it's National Butterscotch Pudding Day. Today, September 19th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
Live blog from NOS News on the Budget Day 2023, or Prinsdag is what it's called in Dutch. So today's Budget Day. Follow all developments via this live blog. The live broadcast starts at 12:25 p.m. and can be followed on all sorts of places if you're watching this. It's probably already happened by the time I upload this, but this is what's happened so far. A baker from The Hague hopes that the Netherlands can enter calmer waters. A baker in The Hague makes extra tompoeses, which is like an orange cookie on top of some custard cake. It's really good, actually, but it's only made today. So this is the only day you can get it. Otherwise, you have to wait till his birthday, I think. He is concerned about the economic prospects for the Netherlands. The weather forecast in The Hague is quite a bit of windy and cloud. It promises to be windy today and also remains cloudy. Rain is expected in the afternoon and evening. The wind in particular can become a nuisance, rising to wind force 6. However, that wind force will only be reached around 3 p.m. this afternoon. Only a third of Dutch people have confidence in politics, according to an IPOS survey commissioned by the NOS. Nearly 3/4, or 72% of Dutch people over the age of 18, believe that politicians are more concerned with themselves than with solving the country's problems. I can believe that. This feeling is stronger among older people, 55 plus, than among young people, 18 to 34-year-olds. Yeah, because they have hope still. Only VVD and D66 voters have a majority of confidence in politics. As we wrote below, the really big plans will be missing due to the outgoing status of the cabinet. That's right, since the prime minister is leaving office, they can't really cover or make any promises because he's not going to be here. He's like, I'm leaving. I can say what I want to happen, but I can't promise you these things for next year. I won't be here. So, a resigned cabinet no longer takes major decisions. That's the custom, so the following applies. Do not create new policy and only handle current matters. But which issues are discussed and has happened before Budget Day was politically light. That's what they're calling it, politically light, because they're not doing anything heavy. Many demonstrators were also present at the driving tour and the balcony scene last year. The inverted Dutch flags and the cheering towards the glass coach were unmissable. This is back when the big farmer drama was happening, so they were angry at the prime minister for telling farmers they can't dump all their nitrogen into the water. Demonstrations during the driving tour and the balcony scene were unique for Budget Day, but given the polarization in society, it was not a surprise to everyone, experts told NOS at the time. A speech from the throne in simple language is generally much more appreciated than the way the speeches are given now. This is the conclusion of researchers from Utrecht University. The speeches from the throne from the past 4 years are similar in terms of language, says Henk Pandermat, who conducted research together with Leo Lenz. It's also on the fancy side, and they were equally difficult to understand. The researchers do not expect any break in style today. A specific style has clearly been chosen. What is he talking about? I don't know. Even before the official presentation of the government's plans for next year, the budget memorandum was leaked. Below is a selection of the figures and plans for 2024 that are already known. Because Ruta 4 cabinet is outgoing, no major plan will be presented this year. However, the government decided in the summer to allocate an additional 2 billion euros for purchasing power measures for people with low or middle income. So the program that will be happening today, since we're reporting this at 11, so nothing really happens until 1 p.m. So 1 p.m. the chairman opens the United Assembly of States General, and the royal procession departs from Nordinde Palace to the Royal Theatre. We were there yesterday. The glass carriage arrives at the Royal Theatre. We were also there yesterday. We've basically walked the entire path. The king delivers a speech from the throne in which the government indicates the most important plans for the coming year. At 2 p.m., the arrival of the royal procession at the Nordinde Palace. The royal party then appears on the balcony, also known as the balcony scene. At 3:30, presentation in the House of Representatives of the briefcase containing the budget memorandum by outgoing Finance Minister Kach. So that's what's going to happen today at the Prinsesdag, or Budget Day. And on to you.
Good Tuesday News Day. This is an article from Tree Hugger, Sustainably from All. The many mighty benefits of writing by hand. This is a story by Melissa Breyer. While pen and paper may seem poised on the edge of obscurity, handwriting offers a bevy of brain-boosting perks that should not be lost to technology. While I confess a love for many of the trappings of modernity, my inner Edith Wharton longs for the simple pleasure of 19th century life. I daydream of sitting on the parlor and writing letters to a sister or suitor, pages filled with swash-flourish script and a sound of ink-dipped metal nibs scratching along the paper. And yes, my vision of Victorian living is completely romanticized. I'm sure I abhor the lack of human and civil rights, modern sanitation, medicine, and the like, but still, it's a rather sustainable idea to be able to simply grab a pen and a sheet of paper to write a letter, rather than having to rely on a computer and a printer, all the various supplies and resources required to simply convey a few lines of thought. I loved when my daughter started learning cursive in school, and was surprised to hear from parents at other schools that their children weren't learning to write a script. And indeed, in 2010, the Common Core standards stopped requiring the teaching of cursive in public schools. The ability to read cursive matters as well. As Michael Martin points out on NPR, many of the most important historical documents in the U.S., everything from the Declaration of Independence to the Bill of Rights, are written in cursive. What happens when we require a translator of our most precious founding documents? But it appears the tide is turning. And the curly, cued linked letters and block printing too, my personal print of choice, will not go down without a fight. A number of states are now requiring the teaching of cursive in schools, a revival encouraged by educators, researchers, parents, and politicians. It is a good thing. While typing in digital files may be great in stemming the tide of paper waste, when used judiciously, writing things by hand has numerous benefits that we should not be in a rush to lose sight of. In fact, most things that are written in hand first, and then they just go re-edit them later. That's an actual fact. Most people don't just sit down at a processor and go, tap, 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 and ideas fly through. They usually wake up in the middle of the night and go, I got an idea, and write it down on something. Let's see, we're going to cover 5 points, but we're not going to cover them extensively. Consider the following. Number 1, it improves learning. Number 2, it encourages brain development. Number 3, it makes for better composition. Number 4, it helps achieve goals. And number 5, it fosters attention. And to all this, I will add that a certain intentionality comes with forming letters on paper. One of those is lost when tapping plastic buttons. As technology increasingly makes our world more and more automated, we run the risk of losing sight of what we think and write. For me, there's a real-world tactile sensation rather than a haptic one that helps center thinking. There's no autocorrect or grammar suggestions or the potential of AI to guide one's thoughts. It's just you and your pen and your paper. And if nothing else, there are a few things that compare it to receiving handwritten There are few things that compare it to receiving a handwritten letter in the mail. Maybe I'm just a little old-fashioned, but some traditional skills are too lovely to use, especially when they come with so many benefits that don't require an office full of electronics to receive. And there's your story. use your brain, use your hands, and you will stimulate thought.
News from Ukraine. I don't want to register. I'll do it later. Okay, thank you. Volodymyr Zelensky, this is from staff and agencies, so everyone's reporting on this. This is a joint report. Volodymyr Zelensky is set to address the UN General Assembly in person on Tuesday for the first time since Russia's invasion in February 2022. Telling reporters, for us, it's very important that all our words, all our messages will be heard. The Ukrainian president made the remarks during the visit to Staten Island University Hospital, where Ukrainian soldiers have been treated for amputations. In 2022, Zelensky sent a pre-recorded speech to the UN in which he said, "We can return to the Ukrainian flag to our entire territory. We can do it with the force of arms, but we need time." Zelensky will also attend a UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine on Wednesday, but was unclear on whether he would remain seated in the 15-member body horseshoe-shaped table if Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov speaks. And if in the United Nations still there is a place for Russian terrorists, the question, not to me, I think, it's a question to all the members of the United Nations, he said. I'm not sure that we will choose the format. Asked whether he'd stay in the room to listen to Zelensky, Zelensky said, "I don't know how it will be, really." On Monday, the Ukrainian president traveled straight to the hospital for the airport after landing in New York, and awarded medals to the wounded soldiers and some hospital staff. "Thank you for continuing to fight for our country and defend its borders. I also thank the doctors and all those who have been supporting Ukrainian soldiers since the beginning of the full-scale war. We will be waiting for all of you. We need you and every warrior of Ukraine to defeat the enemy. Thank you for your service. Everyone is proud of you. I wish you recovery and victory and return home." In his speech on Tuesday, Zelensky is expected to make his case to the world and to Washington for continued help in repelling Russia's invasion nearly 19 months into the war. Ukraine's Western allies have supplied weapons and other assistance, and the U.S. Congress is weighing President Joe Biden's request to provide as much as $24 billion in military and humanitarian aid. U.S. lawmakers are increasingly divided on providing additional money to Ukraine. Russian UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said last week the council meeting convened by the Albanian on the president for September would simply be a big show. Diplomacy comes and grinding gains by Ukraine around the heavily contested city of Bakhmut, with the retaking of the tactically important village of Klishivka, in what would mark Kyiv's second notable counteroffensive victory in 3 days. Zelensky said it is his nightly video address on Sunday. "Today, I would like to particularly commend those soldiers, step by step, are returning to Ukraine what belongs to it, namely the area of Bakhmut." Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will also meet Zelensky in New York on the Wednesday, the office of the Brazilian presidency said on Monday. So Lula has advocated for the creation of a group of nations to mediate an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. But in May, he stated that both Moscow and Kyiv were to be blamed for the conflict, angering the U.S. and European states who backed Ukrainian resistance to the Russian invasion. Ukrainians should just not have been there. They should have just not existed. Zelensky is expected to seek to convince Lula that the war in Ukraine is not an obstacle to progress for the world's poor, and that Ukraine's fate is a legitimate matter for the world, not just Europe. Huh? Oh yeah. Last month, the Brazilian leftist leader told the reporters neither Zelensky nor Russian President Vladimir Putin were ready for peace. Lula and Zelensky have never met, though they held a video call in March, days after Brazil voted for a UN resolution that called for peace and demanded Moscow withdraw its troops. The Ukrainian government asked for the meeting between Zelensky and Lula after the two men did not meet at the G7 summit in Japan, the Japanese city of Hiroshima, earlier this year. President Joe Biden is slated to host Zelensky on Thursday at the White House, and the Ukrainian leader is expected to meet congressional leaders from both political parties while he is in Washington. Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said on Monday he would meet Zelensky this week. So there's your update there on Zelensky, Ukraine, and how Russia is totally not accidentally invading Ukraine.
Okay, and more Good News Tuesday, or Good Tuesday News Day. We're going to talk about water and pesticide use cut nearly in half after better cotton helps farmers become sustainable. This is from the Good News Network. No reporter's name given. It's everyone's favorite fabric, and over the last decade, it's become way more sustainable. Better Cotton just published a major annual impact report highlighting significant progress in India that has slashed pesticide and water use while making improvements to farmers' livelihoods. The world's largest cotton sustainability initiative charted the performance of Indian farmers from 2014 to 22 and found overall pesticide use decreased by 53% and water usage dropping by nearly 1/3. Enrolled in the Better Cotton program, almost 1 million farmers also saw their costs reduced by 15.6% per hectare of land, equal to about 2.5 acres. Since the group launched its India operation in 2011. The report shows a dramatic reduction in the use of pesticides and highly hazardous pesticides by Better Cotton farmers as a result of the adoption of capacity strengthening trainings on the integrated pest management and the delivery of effective awareness campaigns. Specifically, the number of farmers using HPPs was cut from 64% to 10%, whilst those using monocroptophos, a pesticide classed as highly toxic by the World Health Organization, dropped from 41 to just 2%. Water usage for irrigation was reduced by 29% between the baseline years of 2021 and 22. Nitrogen application, which drives greenhouse gas emissions in cotton production when used excessively, decreased by 6% per hectare. Well, you want to know about nitrogen for the Dutch farmers, right? They're all up in arms about that. On-farmer livelihoods, the total cost per hectare, including land renting, decreased by 15.6% and was driven by expense reductions for land preparation and fertilizer expenses. In 2021, Better Cotton farmers also had an average cotton limit yield per hectare of 650 kilograms, which is 200 kilograms per hectare more than the national average. As an organization turns its focus from expansion to deepening impact, the report serves to celebrate progress and identify any gaps so they can continue to make positive difference for the cotton growing communities. Since the first Better Cotton harvest in India in 2011, the Asian country has also been pioneering force within the worldwide organization. We're buoyed by the results of this impact report, which demonstrate the environmental, social, and economic benefits of better cotton production and remain committed to driving further improvements at the farm level, said Alan McClay, the Better Cotton CEO. Over 1/5 of the world's cotton is now grown under the Better Cotton standard, with 2.9 million farmers in 23 countries receiving training on sustainable farming practices and 2.2 million farmers earning Better Cotton licenses. We have united the industry stakeholders behind our efforts, from ginners to spinners to brand owners, civil society organizations, and governments. Everyone who cares about cotton and its sustainable future can now be part of something better, he says. And that's your story on Better Cotton. Back to you.
All right, in culture news, kind of culture news, radio is culture. An FCC judge has decided the only black radio station is allowed to exist. A federal in Knoxville. Not the only one in the world. A Federal Communications Commission judge rejected an effort by the agency to revoke the broadcast license of WJBE 997, I don't know what their slogan is, or FM 1040 AM, Knoxville, Tennessee's only black-owned radio station, allowing the station to continue broadcasting. In a ruling handing down on September 14th, a judge ruled that WGBE's owner, Joe Armstrong, should not have his broadcast license revoked, despite the agency's concerns over Armstrong's old felony conviction. Oh no, he had a felony. How dare he use the radio? For a tax crime. Okay, tax crime. Oh, okay. He stole some people's money. He didn't murder anyone. That occurred years before he took ownership of the station in 2022. Years ago, yeah, okay. Judge Jane Hinckley Halprin, the agency's administrative law judge, concluded in the ruling. Jane Hinckley Halprin, the agency's administrative law judge, concluded in the ruling that Armstrong's conviction was an isolated event, saying that enough time has elapsed to show that what Mr. Armstrong has remediated his wrong. Yeah, 2012 is when he took, and years before 2012 is when he did the tax crime. and he hasn't committed any tax crimes since. If I was being permanently punished for the mistakes I made in the past, WJBE wouldn't be in existence, nor would the station be recognized for the programming that we're bringing to Knoxville. Armstrong, a former long-serving state representative in Tennessee General Assembly, told NPR. The judge looked beyond my faults and saw the community's needs, he added. WJBE is known for being a fixture in the Knoxville area, serving as a source of news for the black community. Being very much a community-oriented station, Armstrong said, so I wonder why people are trying to get him shot down. The station broadcasts local news and weather, church services, emerging artists, free advertising for struggling small businesses, and in recent years, information about the COVID-19 pandemic. But for the last 2 years, WJBE, whose call letter paid tribute to its original owner, the godfather of soul, James Brown, has battled with the FCC over Armstrong being able to own a radio station with the integrity following his conviction in 2016 for making a false statement on his tax returns, which is something only black people get arrested for. Yeah. The agency argued that Armstrong breached ownership regulations due to his prior conviction as they attempted to implement a 33-year-old character qualification policy for radio license holders. It's not like it's something that happened, let's say, this year or last year. We're talking about something that happened in 2008, Armstrong told NPR in June 2023 interview. Nearly 15 years ago, Armstrong and a partner legally bought cigarette tax stamps that were later sold for a profit following the Tennessee legislators' vote to increase the state's cigarette tax, according to the Institute for Justice, a nonprofit public interest law firm that helped Armstrong fight the case. His accountant reportedly did not properly pay the taxes on this sale. As a result, Armstrong faced trouble with the IRS. Like, so unserious. Yeah, oh, the world was going to end if these guys didn't pay their freaking taxes on cigarettes. In 2016, Armstrong was acquitted of most of the charges. Acquitted? Hello? Yeah. And was convicted of only a single count of making a false statement on his tax return. Not murdering anybody, not illegally displaying terrorist attacks on a radio station. Nothing to do with radio at all. Yeah. His accountant, Charles Stivers, was convicted on tax fraud and was granted probation in 2017. Armstrong's civil rights, included his right to vote, were restored in 2020. In 2017, Armstrong said he let the FCC know about his conviction, which he says has caused no issues up until probably some racists found out about it, so it looks like. But despite all his efforts, the FCC still raised concerns about his liability to run WJBE. Andrew Ward, the attorney who represented Armstrong in the case, told NPR that the old personal tax violation shouldn't prohibit someone from holding a broadcast license. The government should not get in the way of people working because of irrelevant criminal convictions, Ward said. It happens all the time. It was irrational here, and it's irrational when it happens anywhere. The FCC did not immediately respond to NPR's request for comment regarding Armstrong's case. The agency has an option of appealing last week's decision, but it's unclear if it will choose to do so.
Hey, well, it's time for This Day in History, September 19th. On the year 1657, John II Casimir Vasa, King of Poland, signed the Treaty of Walu, renouncing the suzerainty of the Polish crown over Ducal Prussia and making Frederick William the duchy's sovereign ruler. Whoopity-doo for him. 1783, the Montgolfier brothers sent aloft a balloon with a rooster, duck, and a sheep aboard, rapidly advancing French aeronautics and sheep travel. 1863, in 1863, the Battle of Chickamauga Creek, an important engagement of the American Civil War, was fought over control of a railroad center nearby Chattanooga, Tennessee began. In 1955, President Juan Perón of Argentina was overthrown and fled to Paraguay after his Army-Navy revolt led by a democratically inspired officer. And his wife famously said, "Don't cry for me, Argentina." 1970, the first episode of the sitcom The Mary Tyler Moore Show aired on the American television. The groundbreaking series starred Mary Tyler Moore as a single independent working woman at the time when female characters were defined as wife, girlfriend, or widow of the main character. 1991, the Oztal Alps and the Italian-Austrian border, German tourists discovered a mummified human, later known as the Iceman, that was subsequently determined to date from 3300 BCE. 1994, the medical drama ER debuted on NBC and became one of the highest rated programs on television. It launched several careers The careers of several actors, most notably George Clooney and Juliana Margulies. And George Clooney was already famous from Facts of Life, so I don't know if it launched his career. He was already on Facts of Life. 1995, the Unabomber's Manifesto, a 35,000-word anti-technology document written by Ted Kaczynski, who had launched a bombing campaign that killed 3 and wounded 23, was published in the New York Times. The manifesto helped lead to his capture when his brother recognized it. Hey, that's my brother, let me turn him in. 2011, Panamanian baseball pitcher Mariano Rivera registered his record-setting 602nd career save. When he retired in 2013, he had unprecedented 652 saves, kind of a made-up stat anyway. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. I mean, you come in and give up 3 runs, you still get a save if your team wins a game. It's kind of a stat anymore. English author Jackie Collins died at the age of 77 on this date in 2015. And our featured event is George Washington's farewell address published. In his farewell address printed on Philadelphia newspaper on this day, 1796, George Washington, the first U.S. president, implored his country to maintain neutrality and avoid entangling alliances in Europe. Probably the most important letter in the history of the United States because he gave up power, which some presidents don't want to do. William Golding was born on this day in 1911. He's a British novelist. Jimmy Fallon was born on this day in 1974. Sunita Williams, American astronaut, was born on this day in 1965. Twiggy, famous British fashion model, was born in 1949. We already covered William Golding. And Henry III, King of France and Poland, was born on this day in 1551. And what other day is it besides Butterscotch Pudding Day? Well, I'll tell you. We will find out here. Oh, wait, it just went away. We'll find it again. Damn it. Where did that go? Okay. National Day calendar, just a click away. All right. It is National Talk Like a Pirate Day. Aye, matey, so we're gonna do the rest of the show like this. It's National Butterscotch Pudding Day. National Butterscotch. It's National Voter Registration Day. You scallywags. And it's National IT Professional Days. So all of you guys that pretend you have jobs that go around and laugh at all us clowns that can't use computers. And I know I'm turning French in my pirate voice, but that's all the days there is today.
And that's been Allison here from Hoofddorp as we get ready to send Rog up into the sky back to the U.S.
And this is Roger saying bye for my last day in Europe, near the Dutch city of Amsterdam, although we're not technically in Amsterdam. We're not near Amsterdam, but we're in the Dutch city of Hoofddorp. I said that wrong, but that's where we are on this day. Aye, mateys. And September 19th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.